Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning. The sun is shining. A new day in Chicago. A new bill for the state of Illinois, the crime reform bill. We've been talking about it all morning because I am blessed to have John Anthony here.
Yes.
Former cop and former state rep.
Yes.
When I was there yesterday watching them sign that, I was thinking, you would be perfect to explain this. Well, you would be.
Yeah.
And what can you take with the no cash bond? What can I grab? An example of when you would use a no cash bond. Like what kind of crime or misdemeanor, or what would it be?
It could be, retail theft is a good example, but it's someone who, since we're abolishing cash bond, in general, it's the idea of someone who's not going to be a threat to a community or to a person. So.
Yeah, Bubba, get me off the stage. I don't like uncomfortable questions. For more on this, let's welcome to the program. I think this is his first time on our show, Ed Delmore. And why we're having Ed Delmore on is because he's the police chief of Gulf Shores, Alabama. But more importantly than that, he wrote Governor Pritzker a letter. Good morning, Ed. How are you? Or police chief, excuse me. I have to tell you, though, I have been to Gulf Shores, Alabama. I played the Trent Jones courses down there. Love it.
We appreciate you and your money.
Yes, thank
coming
you.
to Gulf Shore.
Yes, but it's a slice of heaven down there that people don't know about.
It sure is. It sure is. Thank you.
So what motivated you? Just tell us your story. And because you used to live in Illinois, and you got out. You're the lucky one.
So, I felt like I had the chops to write this because I was a lifelong Illinois resident. I was born in East St. Louis, and I was a police officer in Illinois in law enforcement for 30 years.
Wow.
Before I retired and accepted the position in Gulf Shores. So I've been down here for 11 years, which makes me pretty old, and with 41 plus years of full-time law enforcement experience. And following this legislation and talking to my colleagues back in Illinois, where I still teach police officers regularly, we saw what a mess it was going to be and how horrible it was going to be. Now, having said that, there are aspects of it that are fine, but the vast majority of it is a real mess, and Illinois cops are going to pay for it, and Illinois residents are going to pay for it in a very negative way, and I'm sure John would agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've read the thing, and it's a mess.
Yeah, it's 750 pages. Easy beach read, as I say. What are some of the positives in there?
Well, the thing that I like as a police chief is some of the licensing and the database. And this is not my phrase, but there is a problem in a lot of places in the United States with so-called gypsy cops, where one officer will get terminated or be asked to resign pending termination, will leave an organization, and then pop up in some other burg very quickly. And sometimes you have officers who continue to do that over and over and over again, and they're knuckleheads, and they end up in different departments 7, 8, 9 times in 5 years.
That's true.
And so if there's a database to track that, I'm all for it. The way a lot of HR departments work now, it's difficult to get an answer about an employee's conduct other than they worked here from this date to this date. And so that's a problem I'm all for, the tracking.
Hey, and Chief Delmore, we actually dealt with that back in Senate Bill 1304, Amy's favorite bill. We actually instituted the database back then. So when they put it here, I was kind of confused because that was already established law. But I want to talk. There's something from your article, and I really want you to expound on this a little bit more, because I think people really need to understand this. You said in your letter to Pritzker, in his book, Stoning the Keeper of the Gate, Lawrence Bloom wrote, society must come to understand that the price they will pay for a more passive police officer is a more aggressive criminal. Please expound on that, because Chicago, we had 2,000 carjackings or 200.
We're
something.
up 283% in carjackings from last year.
Yeah,
and most of them, about 40%, are high schoolers who should be in school.
Yeah.
One as young as 12 who pointed a gun at a woman's head
Yes.
and said, "Give me your car."
So, well, yeah, it's a good point. And so here's why I wrote that. Chicago has seen this before. I'm old enough to remember. I'd been a policeman about 5 years when Benji Wilson was murdered.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Down the street from my house.
The star high school basketball player at Simeon,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Oh,
And
I'll remember that story.
and there was a piece written by a guy named Bill Granger at the Tribune at the time about how when the police are played as political pawns and they have to back off, it's the average Joe like Ben Wilson who is going to suffer for that. These kids who are in desperate need of police protection are not getting it because the cops are backing off. And that's exactly what you see and have been seeing going on throughout Illinois.
Yeah.
And you just saw that also, of course, in Minneapolis. Well, they've realized what a mistake that was,
Oh, yeah.
and now the defunding police has now become fund the police, we need more cops.
Well, what do you think of this like snitch line? Or call in
Well-
alleged bad behavior by a police officer, because you can have a personal vendetta against somebody
Yeah.
and make their life hell.
Yeah.
Well, police officers need due process like anybody else. The protections that were put in place in Illinois regarding affidavits and so forth was just to prevent people from making false claims.
That's right.
And criminals have an absolute ulterior motive when they make a claim of misconduct, and that is to somehow negotiate their cases to be dropped, or just to get the police to back off from doing legitimate enforcement. There's nothing wrong with making complaints, having the complaints investigated, but anonymous complaints, I mean, at any point, somebody could choose to target a particular police officer. Not only is the training board going to be required to investigate that, but it has to be retained forever.
Yes.
So
Indefinitely.
if I have 150 complaints in a 6-month period of time, who's going to look at me if I want to move from a local organization and become a trooper with the state police? Just as an example of the things that can happen.
Right. And Chief, you know, one of the things that a lot of these activist groups, they go out and say, well, this cop has had 20 complaints filed against him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they are complaints, but how many were founded? One.
Right. I hear that
or
all
none.
the time from
You know, that's the part that gets me.
Well, a good, professional, proactive police officer, by doing their job, is going to generate complaints.
That's right.
And the vast majority of those, and perhaps all of those, are unsustained when they're investigated. But you're right; they stack the unsubstantiated complaints and indicate that somebody's a problem when in reality they're not. They're just a good, proactive police officer, and they're out there doing their job.
What were your thoughts about the use of force and how they're basically trying to change the use of force continuum? Because, I mean, when does a cop engage? I mean, now these split-second decisions are going to become multiple-second decisions, because cops are going to be thinking to themselves, wait, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be the next this cop. I don't want this changing the use of force continuum from people who've never had to be in situations where they've had to draw a weapon is dangerous in my estimation. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, again, it's written in such a way that a lot of my friends in Illinois are calling it a cop trap. The same thing is true for the body camera language.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of body cameras. We've had them here since 2010, along with in-car cameras. However, our policy is that an officer can review their footage before they write a police report, because the goal of a police report is an accurate reflection of the incident.
That's right.
And so what I'm hearing from Illinois police officers as a result of this is, hey, my reports are going to be, I responded to such and such an address, see body camera footage. Because it's also written in such a way that if an officer has information in his or her written report that doesn't jibe with the body camera footage, that they're not allowed to look at, they're committing a crime.
So true.
Now, do you think they said that, nothing's set in stone, even though they signed the bill? They came forward and said nothing's set in stone. We still have conversations ongoing Are you? Did Governor Pritzker write you back by any chance to have an ongoing conversation with him?
No, I doubt that his handlers would have even let him get near that letter. But no, I watched the signing yesterday, and that's so disingenuous. You don't go back and clean up language later on. What's their incentive to do that?
Well, because we have an election coming up, a primary in a year and a month, March 22nd.
And I'm sure the representative would agree that even the Hazelcrest chief, who was the only law enforcement member other than the attorney general that appeared by Zoom, the first thing out of his mouth was that there's a lot of language that needs to be cleaned up. Normally at a signing like that, you're going to see the blue uniforms in the background, the Illinois State Police Director at all, and none of them were there. And here's another point, and John will sure get this too. I was an FOP member, fraternal order police member, and a bargaining guy for the FOP before I went into management. It's not often, sometimes it happens, but it's not often that the FOP and the Chiefs Association and the Sheriff's Association and 100 of the 102 state's attorneys in the state of Illinois agree on anything. But all of them agree that this is bad law.
I agree. Just one quick thing. Are you hiring part-time? Because I love the Gulf Shores. I'm more than willing to come for you to recertify me and come down the Gulf Shores.
Well, can you take the heat, though? I mean, it's going to be sunny and 63 today.
Oh, there you go. Bragging. Yeah. I've always wanted to be Angie Dickinson. Can I come down and be a Gulf Shore police officer?
Absolutely. Amy, I heard you talking about masks on the beach earlier. I had to chuckle. It's like, oh, the beach.
Yeah.
But yes,
well, she opens it up. It's going to be 30 degrees today, and now the beaches are suddenly everything's open. Please, everything's open in Illinois. How did that happen?
Got to get them on my show.
But you would have loved it because our lifeguards turned into, are you ready for this? Social distance ambassadors. And so they would come up to you if you could even get into the lakefront because everything was barred. But I found a way in. I snuck my way in. She never signed it. Our mayor never signed an executive order.
Yeah.
So I would just tell them that, like, come and get me.
You got to come on my show, Chief.
Come and arrest me. But yeah, so they tell people to stand far apart from each other. Yeah. That was their job.
I'd love, absolutely. I'd love to come on your show, and by all means, go on our website and put in the application. You'll have a lot of. I wrote this thank you partially tongue in cheek, but the reality is there's a huge stack, and it's wide ranging. Now, I will tell you this, in the interest of full disclosure, of my 80 employees, 10 of us are already from Illinois, if that tells you anything.
Really?
So,
all right.
Hey,
well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief.
This is That Voice belongs to Ed Delmore. He is the police chief for Gulf Shores, Alabama, and he wrote a wonderful letter to our Governor Pritzker. Thank you so much, Ed, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Is your